We want to get back to that breaking news where the Supreme Court upheld the federal law that bans TikTok that begins on Sunday.
That's right. That's unless it's sold by its China-based parent company. So we're joined live by legal commentator and former Department of Justice prosecutor Neama Rahmani. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me. Breaking news this morning.
Yeah, well, we're looking at this too, Neama. It was a unanimous opinion by the Supreme Court. A, are you surprised? And B, what does this mean?
I'm not surprised, although I am surprised that the decision was unanimous. That's pretty rare for the justices. Ultimately, TikTok had many legal hurdles it had to overcome. First, foreign corporations do not have First Amendment protections. And the question is, was this really free speech at all? We're talking about an algorithm here, and it's not content-based. It's not like the government is saying, well, you can't talk about this specific issue on TikTok. It was really a national security concern, and ultimately, because it was content neutral and it was really forcing the sale, the justices unanimously said this does not violate the free speech of Americans.
Well, so that's the idea is, just so I can clarify here, the idea is that the algorithm itself could end up having national security implications on users, correct?
Well, the issue is the data, and it's accessible and potentially owned by a Chinese company and available to the Chinese government. And the Supreme Court has previously sided with the government when it comes to these national security issues. The most recent example probably being the Muslim ban. The Congress and the president, they have a lot of leeway when it comes to regulating data and security issues when it comes to foreign adversaries.
All right, so let's talk about what's next. TikTok's lawyers had said before this that if they lose this challenge, they will shut it down. Let's say it doesn't shut down, because if it shuts down, okay, then it's gone and we don't have an option for now. If it doesn't shut down, we've seen articles about people being able to still access it through a VPN. Will Apple or Google still carry it in the App Store, or can they face fines if they do that?
Well, the two interesting things are, what is TikTok going to do and what is President-elect Trump going to do? So as far as TikTok, you're right. They've said that they will not sell, and that may be bluffing, it may be blustering to try to force the government's hand or the Supreme Court's hand. But now that there's hundreds of billions of dollars at stake, let's see if business minds and cooler heads prevail and they actually do divest and sell. But TikTok, at least up until today, has said that they won't sell. But I think ultimately that's the direction they're going to have to go in, because frankly, there's just too much money at stake.
And we've heard from so many people saying that they're willing to buy it, even Elon Musk coming out saying that he would be interested in buying the platform at one point in time. But of course, TikTok saying, no, that's not true. We're not going to sell to him. You know, there are substitutes, and there are substitutes that are Chinese based, like Lemon 8 and Red Note. You know, what happens now? Does this become a blanket, you know, ruling for all of these sites, or is it just specific to TikTok now?
It is just specific to TikTok, and TikTok users do want to sort of stick it to the law and the government by signing up for these other Chinese-based apps. But ultimately, they're not going to have the popularity that TikTok does. And it's going to be interesting to see if people have flocked to one of the Meta platforms like Instagram or Meta. But look, it's not over yet. I mean, President Biden said he's not going to enforce the ban. There's not much to enforce in the one day on Sunday, his last day in office. And then if President Trump and his Justice Department don't enforce the ban either, then we'll have a law on the books that isn't being enforced. And there are other laws like that. Probably the best example is marijuana. Under federal law, it's a Schedule I drug, but obviously it's legally sold in certain states, including California, under state law because it's not enforced. And the CEO is going to be attending that inauguration on Monday. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see what Trump does. With respect to
That's another thing for his day one agenda.
I know, and there's so many options where it could go. All right, Neama Rahmani, thank you so much for joining us with that insight.
Oh, thanks for having me.